Arising from the 2023 general elections, which reverberated around the world, which has almost run full circle now, what are the gains and positives you will take away from this election outing as an obedient and an active member of Labour Party, the LP?
Thank you very much indeed. Well, to properly evaluate the positives and the gains, I think it is necessary to understand the social and historical context in which the election was held and the political atmosphere in the country prior to the election. Since 1979, two major political parties, two going by different names, two or three major political parties have dominated the political space. And in the 8 years preceding the election, that is, the tenure of, 16 years preceding the election, the tenures of former President Goodluck Jonathan and former President Muhammadu Buhari, two major parties dominated the political scene and controlled all but one of the states' governments in the country. Now, it was under that condition that people expected, it was expected that as it was before, the PDP and the APC would again dominate the political space until the sudden emergence of Mr. Peter Obi, who resigned, quit the PDP a few weeks before the closure of nomination and joined the Labour Party and was nominated as the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. And when he was nominated, because of the fact that Labour did not control any state government and Labour Party had not played any significant role in the recent history of Nigeria, nobody gave the Labour Party a chance. Nobody gave Mr. Peter Obi a chance. In fact, the Labour Party and the obedient movement had no access to resources. They had no access to information because their opponents controlled the TV stations throughout the country, both national and so on, and they resorted to social media. And the opponents were mocking them that Labour Party and obedience did not exist, mocking them as two or three people tweeting in a room. In addition to that, the leaders of the Labour Party did not believe in violence or buying of votes. And this was another predicament. And the obedience resorted to self-mobilization. A lot of the movements we saw were self-mobilization. In fact, I know that many officers of the Labour Party at that time were expecting to be given money. They were expecting money just like PDP and APC were doing. But there was no money to be given. So obedience had to resort to self-mobilization, self-sponsorship of their campaign. This was the background. But unfortunately for the major parties, the obedience had taken over the political space. And when the results started trickling in fact, before I even go to the results, most political leaders, even in the southeast, in Peter Obi's area, place of origin, did not give him a chance. But I'm talking of the political leaders. One of the richest men in Anambra State, Arthur Eze, did not hide his lack of support and ask Obi to step down. They did not support him financially. Even the governor of his home state attacked him with a series of letters, which brought down his image to a large extent. And I remember that one of Chukwuma Soludo's, Professor Chukwuma Soludo's children, a London-based or UK-based, who is UK-based, in the flurry of media criticism, in the social media against his father, with all due respect to his father, he said that nobody should see him as an extension of his father, and made a categorical statement that he supported P2B. So with all these rich men and people in power, people did not expect, people in power not supporting P2B, people did not expect. But when the results started trickling in the evening of February 25, the political establishment, the INEC leadership that were sponsored by the political establishment were shocked and alarmed. And the only way they could stop P2B from winning was to claim that there was a glitch and stop transmission of the results. So it was phenomenal. And coming to the gains, I want to say this. If you take a look at the political culture in Nigeria prior to February 25, it was unbelievable that a candidate who did not share money would galvanize such massive support. It was unbelievable, and people did not expect it. In other words, this is a demonstration of the fact that if Nigerians see a credible candidate, they are ready to shun money, they are ready to withstand intimidation in order to support that candidate. This is a revolutionary spirit that was demonstrated on November 25. It shows what Nigerians are capable of doing. It shows that Nigerians are not listening to so-called big men, like governors and what do they call, organizations that say they stand for national groups such as Ohaneze. I remember 2007, one Ohaneze came out and adopted Orji Okalo as his sole candidate. Orji Okalo lost in all the southeast states, woefully too. So the masses know exactly what they want. And I remember when there was an election which featured one of the best minds that we can get, Professor Dora Akunyili, who contested for Senate, and somebody that was not her match intellectually, morally, in terms of integrity, was said to have won the election because she refused to share money, and she refused to employ thugs. And on that particular, after the election, I met two Igbo, well-fed Igbo men, and I asked them from Anambra State, I think, and I asked them, how could you prefer that kind of personality with a negative record? How could you prefer him to Dora Akunyili? You know what they told me? They said, how do you expect an Igbo man to work for somebody for free? But they did it, the youth did it on February 25. Now, these are positives in the sense that it demonstrated a revolutionary spirit, the kind of spirit that can salvage Nigeria from its current situation. So these are some of the gains. This spirit is latent and is only awaiting a proper leader in order to manifest itself. That's my take.
Well, so much positives to take away from this outing. Looking at the numbers recorded, which is almost over 6 million votes, and the margin of win that is less than 3 million. It would be safe to say that it was a hugely impressive outing and goes to show the commitment and efforts, the obedience and the Labour Party took into that election. But regardless, you are not new to experiences like this. You were active in the Second Republic when you had purposeful leaders like Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and we know you are a devoted Awoist.
That is correct.
With the raging sentiments and noticeable despair, what would be the disposition of Chief Obafemi Awolowo in politics and party at a time like what you have in Labour Party at the moment?
Let me give you an example. I will not your eyes. After the 1979 federal election, in which the NPN was declared as a winner, a few months after the election, we were invited to a national conference held at Eco Hotels, I think, in Lagos, December 6, if I remember correctly, where the leader of the party delivered one of the most inspiring speeches that I've ever heard. And the speech is entitled Charter of Stability and Progress. Charter of Stability and Progress. The speech gave the philosophical background for the philosophy of the Unity Party of Nigeria. Started with an analysis of man, an analysis of what is man, an analysis of government, an analysis of the objective of government, concluding that the objective of government is to make the good things of life available to all the citizens without exception, and concluded that the failure of Nigerian governments is due to the failure to recognize the prime position of man in any government. And it says that any government that man is the initiator, I can borrow a few words, and accelerator of every form of human progress, both in production, in distribution, and exchange. Man is the initiator and accelerator. Therefore, any system of government that ignores man is basically an error, and is bound to fail, and is bound to be a bane rather than a blessing to the people. And that's the problem. So coming to answer your question, after listening to Awolowo, those of us who attended the lecture felt energized and inspired. And when we come out, as if we have won, because we stand on higher intellectual, moral, and philosophical pedestal than the MPN at that time. So, that was, when he calls us, you are sure you are in for an intellectual and feast that will uplift your personality and uplift your view of life. So what I see missing in the present political formation that is upcoming is, if you remove Peter Obi, there is really no Labour Party. I'm sorry to say. And I really don't know what is holding the leadership from, because if after this election and you leave everybody lying low for such a long time, people could be dispirited. Apart from the fact that they are being, people are being taken and lured with posts and so on and so forth. So I believe that the leadership needs to reinvigorate its members, particularly the obedience. And before the election, there was really no organized party organizational structure. The obedient movement constituted the structure. The labor movement organized themselves into security, into party agents, into everything. And some of them were not paid. Most of them were not paid. So there is absolute need right now to reorganize and re-energize those who made this this great sacrifice for the obedient movement, to demonstrate what Nigerians are capable of doing to bring out a new Nigeria of our dream.
Well, most of this is predicated on the leadership disposition. Most of the obedience, I would say that a bigger percentage of them are youths and may not have been exposed to this kind of orientation essentially. You are a sociologist. You understand human disposition and inclination to interactions. We cannot deny the despair of these dispirited youths arising from these 2023 elections. What should these youths be looking forward to, and what plausible activities should keep them afloat, considering the expedient politics ahead of them?
Leadership is key. Leadership. If the masses are left without leadership, it is dangerous. There is not mere apathy, a deliberate effort to disorient people and let them into avenues that, or into thought processes and actions that are not conducive to the development of this country, including the elite, not even only the youth, including some of the intellectual elites. This government that we are seeing today, that is in place today, is leading Nigeria into what I may call political Abilene, the Abilene paradox, whereby rational, intelligent gentlemen are all moving like sheep in one direction without properly analyzing. And because of the psychological phenomenon of groupthink, as identified by the Yale psychologist Jamin, groupthink that constrains people to think in a particular direction, where mind guards, just like putting you in a mental cage, and people are moving like sheep, even with highly intelligent people. That's the direction in which Nigeria is moving. There must be a moral force. There must be a counter force, where people can see that this is not the way. This is what is missing today in Nigeria. The people cannot mobilize, that is, the masses cannot be expected to mobilize themselves. That is a function of leadership. And I think that this is the critical role that the leadership of the obedient movement has to make, not even the Labour Party. Because I'm one of those who believe that Labour Party as it stands cannot lead until it is reorganized to infuse fresh blood, to infuse actual, revolutionary blood, to understand the urgency of the situation. Because a lot of the officers, with all due respect, that constitute the Labour Party at present were elected years back and belong almost to the same category as their counterparts in other political parties. And one of our most brilliant minds, or brilliant candidates in the last election at Bayelsa, Mr. Udense Radiri, complained that the chairman of the Labour Party in Bayelsa State was induced with 100 million naira to abandon the party. The obedient movement needs new leadership that will reinvigorate the party. During our own time, activities were scheduled. There are scheduled activities. Scheduled activities. There is no question of you lying low and you don't know what is going to happen next. You know that in the next 3 months there is going to be a meeting. You know that in the next 6 months there is going to be a zonal meeting. You know that in the next 1 year there is going to... You have a plan of action to mobilize the people. The Labour Party and the LP have no means of, apart from the social media, unlike their counterparts that control, unlike the other parties that control state television stations, national radio and television stations, APC, the leader of the APC is one of the biggest controller of the media houses in this part of the world. And I would have liked to suggest that the Labour Party needs a formal medium, such as a radio station, both national and international, so where youth can tune in and get information, where people can tune in and get information. So I think that this gap should be filled urgently by the leadership of the obedient movement and the Labour Party in order to hold together and further inspire those who produced this wonderful achievement in February and March 2023.
In practical terms, let's not overlook the fact that the Labour Party has achieved an unprecedented feat in this election. Where you were before this election and where you are now are miles and worlds apart. Burgeoning number of representatives in the National Assembly, a modest number of representatives in the state houses of assembly. The Labour Party has a control of states and the sitting governor. As an ardent believer in organized political leadership, what would be your advice and how much of impact or what would be the outlook if these elected representatives and the governor bind together, show purposeful and organized leadership?
It will make a great impact, no doubt. We don't really need, you need a very strong nucleus, a very strong base from which ideas and influences flow. And this is what is lacking. And I wouldn't say I'm discouraged, but I'm not particularly impressed. I've not had that fiery spirit so far. I've not had it so far from the members of the National Assembly, LP members in the National Assembly. I've not had a single word that presents the Labour Party point of view. I may be wrong, but I've not had one in the National Assembly. I know that the leadership of the APC and even the PDP as the major opposition party might be making systematic and deliberate effort to suppress the Labour Party voice. But I think that based on parliamentary privilege and parliamentary practice, each member has the opportunity to speak, though when recognized by the speaker. I have not seen such evidence. In fact, I won't say I'm disappointed. During the controversy over the 160 million SUV vehicles, I do not see positive comment in terms of that aligns with the philosophy of the Labour Party, egalitarian philosophy that wants to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor in Nigeria. And I pin this down still to leadership. If there is an LP caucus in the National Assembly, and if that caucus is in sync with a focused leadership of the Labour Party, I think because most of these members were just drawn, I won't say by accident, to join the Labour Party. Some of them might not really be in sync with the philosophy of Mr. P2B. This is the time to build that base. And the National Assembly is the right place to build it, in my view. So I won't go as far as criticizing them, but I think they should do more in popularizing and pushing forward the philosophy, the political philosophy of the Labour Party. So far, it has not been done at the national level. But from all I have heard and read about Dr. Alex Oti in Abia State, I think I'm proud of him. And I think he's doing a marvelous job in turning the direction of government and of the society to a more egalitarian and productive society, because that is the bane of governments in Nigeria today, as I see it.
On an interesting note, the obedience and the structured Labour Party has not shown encouraging cohesion and sync. You now have elected representatives and a sitting governor, but I do not think that the obedience and the structured Labour Party are their best in terms of harmony. It is expected that we begin to see transformation and purpose. Let me say the dominant political party today, the APC, wasn't having this much elected members when they began their onslaught after the 2003 elections. From your experience with the UPN, what mindset should be at play to make Labour Party flourish and deliver on expectations?
When you say the mindset of people, the people are not just staying in one place as people. The people are dispersed and going about their various businesses. They need to be coordinated. Unlike what happened just prior to the election when the people engaged in self-mobilization. That is over. As at now, it is I've emphasized this. I hope I'm not overemphasizing it. It is the duty of leadership to coordinate and bring, forward, bring the people together and give them a sense of direction. The masses cannot organize themselves, unlike what happened during the election, and unlike what happened maybe during the NSAS movement, when the youth organized, and when they said there was no leadership. In a political party, there must be leadership. There must be a strong organizational structure of immense power from which directives flow. You cannot underestimate it. So if we're expecting that all the market women, all the youth in the universities, this and everybody going about this mess will organize themselves without the leadership of the party, it may be expecting too much from the masses. So I want to say once again that, and the structure of parties in Nigeria is such that, like Delta State, you cannot begin to organize on your own without the national. A local government cannot begin to organize without the state, because the flow of authority is from the national to the state and to the local and wards. So the wards cannot take the initiative to start telling the state and national what to do, but you can make suggestions. So we are saying that the delay, the silence of national leadership is dangerous, and action should be taken to continue to galvanize and bring together this immense force that exists among the masses that is waiting to be coordinated to achieve a particular objective for the good of Nigeria. That's what we're saying.
Let me come to Mr. P2B. This season election has run full circle for him at that level. Now he has an army of dedicated obedience regardless, and the Labour Party on the other hand. What is expected of him, believing that this certainly isn't the end for him? I would say that this isn't even the beginning of the end for him, but could modestly say that this is almost the end of the beginning for him. What are the expectations from Mr. P2B as we look forward?
This is very, very important, I believe. Mr. P2B, I can understand, is a man of integrity and great humility. and he may not want to jump the gun and take over the responsibility of the party structure by organizing this and organizing that. But I think that he has such a big moral authority that he can go behind the scenes and urge the party to do something. He cannot. Moreover, well, he is a voice right now recognized of an alternative view and approach to government in Nigeria. My own view is that the PDP and the APC are basically sharing the same ideology. They are just people in different camps fighting, protecting the same interest, the interest of the elite. And it is only the Labour Party, only Mr. Peter Obi, as of today, that stands to speak for the masses. If you look at the present government, all they have done, appoint people, share this, share that. There has been no single action taken to bridge that gap between the rich and the poor in Nigeria, or even to empower the poor. I have told you before, when you talk of productivity, from my own philosophy, it is impossible for an illiterate and unskilled population who have no technological skills to engage in productivity in a way that can compete with the developed nations of the world. So we have not started. And this present government has not shown any interest in cultivating the kind of population that can be productive. They have not shown that interest. I think that Mr. Peter Obi has a very big task in coming out on regular basis. And I would recommend scheduled public occasions. Scheduled. Where people will say, Peter Obi is going to speak today. They will listen. Because he's the only voice for today that can speak for the masses. In those days, we have the national secretary, the national organizing secretary, the national this, national that. We don't have that at the Labour Party. We're not hearing of anybody. Nobody is talking anything to anybody. So it is really a great demand that we're making on Mr. Peter Obi, not to think that he is stepping on the functions of the party, but to know that the masses are looking up to him, to hear from him on a regular basis, on issues. On issues. And I also want to take this opportunity to call on the National Caucus of the Labour Party in the National Assembly. They must be able to speak out on national issues on a regular basis, if possible, weekly. So that the followers, those who have shown interest and made sacrifices for a greater Nigeria, should not be discouraged totally. That's my plea to Mr. Peter Obi.
On the sidelines, there have been calls from some quarters, especially from the ruling party, and even from the presidency, pressuring Mr. Peter Obi to take a cue from President George Weah of Liberia and former President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan, concede defeat and congratulate President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What is your view on this? Do you not see this as a way to go?
That does not arise. The court, the Supreme Court has already declared that Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the president of Nigeria, and nobody is disputing that. Now, most Nigerians know what happened during the election. Most Nigerians are aware of what happened in Port Harcourt, how the votes of Mr. Peter Obi and Labour Party were cleaned up and added to APC. Most Nigerians are aware of what happened in Lagos, State, in Plateau State, in Nasarawa State. These people have not apologized for their perfidy. These people are pretending that everything is okay in Nigeria. Everything is not okay. And I want to tell you this. If the problems of a country or the social problems of a country are amenable to legislation or to judicial pronouncements, there will be no problems left in the world. The pronouncement of the Supreme Court has compounded Nigeria's problem. And die-hard obedience will not support Peter Obi congratulating a group of people that trampled on the electoral the sacrosanct of the electoral process in this country. Nobody is disputing that the Supreme Court has declared him winner. But for me, and those that I have known, I will not support a situation where Mr. Peter Obi goes dangling all around, dancing around those who are destroying this country with sycophancy and double standards. After rigging election, you come and start using sweet words, trying to cover up. Yar'Adua was more honest. Late President Yar'Adua. Nobody asked him to step down. He said, I know that the election that brought me to power was flawed. He's a human being. That's what is human. And he took action to appoint the Ways Committee to look into it. If not that he died, I believe he would have done it. That is what we need. We need somebody who is human, who speaks to facts. If he says, oh, please, gentlemen, I know the election is flawed, let's leave it, let's move ahead. He has not said that. Why should people be going to run around and support a system that is bringing Nigeria to its knees? It means you are supporting it. Now, let me say one thing, if you allow me. If you allow me, I don't think this is part of the. You said you want to speak about the gains, the positives. Let me say this. The election was rigged in favor of Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It could also have been rigged in favor of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Let me tell you why I think that even though the rigging is evil and should be condemned, the rigging for Tinubu is still preferable to rigging for Atiku. Why do I say that? Most people may not like to hear this, but this is the truth. Nigeria is polarized by religion, moving in two orbits, the Arab orbit and the Western orbit. And in the past 8 years, we have seen an administration that is unashamedly, unrepentantly, religiously biased. Fanatics will kill an innocent girl in Alhaji Shehu Shagari College of Education, Sokoto, and no notable northern leader will condemn it. No notable northern leader will condemn it. The point, and then before I make my final point, those who spearheaded the nomination of Alhaji Bola Tinubu, the Sharia state governors, the Sharia states of northern Nigeria, led by former governor of Kaduna State, Nasiru El-Rufai. Nasiru El-Rufai boasted in an interview in Hausa language, which was translated by Premium Times, I think in June this year, and published, where he boasted that Muslims will rule and continue to rule, and gave his formula for Muslim rule, both in Kaduna State. I want to say that Yoruba Muslims will disappoint the northern Muslim Islamist not only the extremists, the supremacists. He will disappoint them. Because based on my knowledge, I've lived in Yoruba land. I lived in Oyo as far back as 50 years ago. I lived in Ibadan more than 50 years ago. I schooled in Lagos. I worked in Lagos. I taught at the University of Lagos. I know Yoruba a bit. Yoruba are not religious fanatics. And Yoruba president will disappoint these Islamic supremacists. That is one of the gains of this rigging. Because you remember that former President Buhari wanted Dr. Ahmed Lawan from Yobe State, the birthplace of Boko Haram and Yobe Taliban, the birthplace of the extremists. That's what he wanted. They would be disappointed. So one of the things we are going to see is that even though Mr. Buhari, the president, may not come out frontally to do this, he is not going to support beheading people. I have never seen a Yoruba man cutting off somebody's neck or taking knife on the basis of religion. That is one of the positives from the rigging of the election, not from the election. I'm sorry to say, many people don't like to bring out the real issues in the Nigerian situation. This is one of the core problems. Western, Arab, opposed philosophies of life, opposed worldviews, disagreement about fundamentals. You say you are a republic, and you put a theocratic court into the constitution, and you think the people don't know what they are doing. And you have the Chief Justice of Nigeria, former Justice Tanko Mohammed, is on record asking for more Sharia, in Nigeria. Apart from President Muhammadu Buhari, who in 2003 asked the Muslims should vote only for Muslims. These are on the records. You may accuse Yoruba of ethnicity. You may accuse them of wanting to support themselves, which most people do. You cannot accuse them of being religious fanatics. When General Ibrahim Babangida surreptitiously enrolled Nigeria as a member of the Organization of Islamic Conference in January 1986, effectively making Nigeria an Islamic state, one of the prominent Yoruba Muslims, Chifeso Badamosi, in a publication in the Guardian, forgotten the month, but it's 1980s, I think it's July 1986, stated, condemned the action of General Ibrahim Babangida, quote, telling that it is dishonest and contrary to the teachings of the Prophet, of the Holy Prophet. Yoruba will not condone religious fundamentalism. And people should take note of that. Maybe that's all we can gain from Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. I don't know.
Well, it's always an interesting atmosphere having this interaction with you, Pa Chris Biose. Immeasurable thanks for giving us your time. And let's do this
I really
often.
appreciate you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much.